3, 4, 5, 6, and Tiffany makes 7. We have 1 vacancy. Who are we missing?
I think we're missing Rich.
Yeah, you're right. Nicole, did we hear anything from Rich?
He should be attending, yes.
Okay, so we'll wait a minute or two. Thanks, everybody, for coming. It does take less time to get ready when you only have to get half dressed.
As long as you don't have to stand up or move, right?
This is true.
Well,
Yeah.
I think we should all have to stand up and prove that we're dressed.
Well, I do have bottoms on. They're just not what I would wear with this top.
That's a TV trick. That's a summertime
Oh, I
television
know.
trick that the
Shorts.
anchors would wear shorts behind the desk. Here to tell you it's true.
A long time ago, Father Pennock, who was the Episcopal priest in Potsdam, was on our college council. And he was known to show up at graduation with shorts under his robe. Which really is not a bad idea considering we had some really hot graduations.
Well, we'll have to remember that.
Yep.
If we can have a graduation again.
Yes.
The beginning of the newscast, I have to stand now, so I can't get away with doing
know.
that. So,
You got to do the whole suit thing.
oh yeah.
Is that because they caught you with shorts on, or?
No, we had to upgrade. We had to look sharp and look different and all that stuff. So no, it's enjoyable. But yeah, during the week you have too many interactions with people used to coming into the building, and you couldn't really just be shorts. Weekends is when I got away with it.
Yeah. Alex is back on. Alex, you're muted.
Well, kick him off again then.
Thank
Alex.
you, Mr. Supervisor.
Oh, there you are. Okay, you're
Hello,
back.
Mr. Supervisor.
Birds of a feather. Oh, it's Alex Hammond, not Carol Burns. Wow.
Wow, even
Yeah.
That's
Pretty
usually
good.
what a lot of people say when they actually see me in the office.
Yeah, really. Who are you? You look familiar.
Who are you? I always see Carol behind the desk.
Yep, there you go. Any sign of Rich, Nicole?
No, we're going to try to call him and see if he's coming.
He has technology challenges sometimes.
Just while we're waiting and we have the majority of people on, I'll just let you know that we're going to be streaming live on YouTube for today's meeting. So we haven't turned that on just yet. Right now, if somebody is joining, they'll see a picture of Potsdam. And once we're all here and ready to go, we'll turn it on live and it will be recorded per our guidelines.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
Well, it does seem a lot quieter without Rich on the
Stop. He was only kidding, people.
Yes. I guess I should state that before I ever open my mouth.
Especially on an open mic.
Okay, and Rich is joining right now.
Yay.
Okay, so now that we have everybody, I'll just remind everybody that this will be streamed on YouTube, and so people can watch live. We will record it for afterwards. Just a reminder to keep yourselves muted in case there's any background noise or comments. The chat is open. Would just encourage you to not say anything in the chat that you wouldn't say out loud during a public meeting. And Dan, we are ready to transition to YouTube if June is ready to go.
Yep, Rich, you're muted, but remember, if you want to say something, you have to unmute yourself. That's for everybody, not just Rich. Because even though we've all been doing this, it takes a minute to kind of get back in the swing of things. All right, everybody ready?
Yes.
If you're not, you can go across the street and get a cup of coffee.
Not everybody can, but
I know,
yeah, that was good.
I can't believe WWNY doesn't have a coffee pot, for God's sake.
Oh, we do. I just don't, I
Just don't like that coffee. All right.
Don't like the
And
coffee.
we are live for our
Okay,
SUNY
we're
Potsdam
live.
College Council meeting on October 2nd, 2020. And I will turn it over to June O'Neill, College Council Chair.
Good morning, everybody. It's good to see everyone, even though it's virtual, because it has been since February 21st since we last met in person. And now it's October 2nd, and here we are. So thank you all for joining today virtually. I appreciate it. The first item on our agenda is to adopt the minutes from our last council meeting, which, as I said, was on February 21st. Everyone received a copy via email, and I assume you've had a chance to take a look at it. And so is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes as submitted.
Thank you,
second.
Harold. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, seconded by Molly and Jeff. Any discussion regarding the minutes? Any corrections, additions? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the minutes are approved as submitted. Thank you for that. We have a new member of our College Council joining us this morning. Her name is Tiffany Brand, and Tiffany is the brand new SGA president. Just elected 2 weeks ago, but sworn in on Tuesday. Is that correct, Tiffany? You can unmute yourself.
We were sworn in on Thursday.
Thursday, wow. Well, she's brand new, I said that. And we welcome you. Tiffany is a senior majoring in theater who lives nearby in Akwesasne. And she's studying virtually right now and hoping to go abroad if we can get out and they'll let us in. So we'll have to wait and see. Good luck, Tiffany. We'll hear from you later. Thank you. Okay, the chair's report is the next item on the agenda. First, before we really get into the meat of the meeting, because we have a couple of action items to deal with, I just want to say that I'm sure that you all join me in sending our thoughts to the President and the First Lady and everyone who's been touched by the COVID-19 pandemic. So regardless of your political affiliation or who you like and don't like, this is a time to remember that we are all Americans. And so we do send our thoughts to the First family and everyone else that's been affected. Thank you for that. So firstly, I would like to begin by thanking everybody, the campus, the community, everybody. These are extraordinary times, and they have required extraordinary action on the part of everyone who is a member of the SUNY family. And I do mean everyone. I don't care what their title is on the campus. I don't care what their pay grade is. Everybody has a part to play in making us successful, in enabling us to be together, whether it's in person, whether it's virtual learning, to feel safe on the campus, to be sure that we're meeting all of the CDC and the state guidelines. I want to make sure that everybody feels our appreciation as the College Council. And certainly that's to the president and the president's council and the executive staff. But this is everybody: clerical, food service, maintenance. It takes everybody. It takes a village. In this case, it takes the whole family of Potsdam including our alumni and our donors and all our department heads and the people who had to pick up, seemingly without missing a beat, to learn in some cases how to teach virtually, how to get all that stuff together so that the students can access, make themselves available virtually. Considering the situation and the no time to prepare, I think we've done an extraordinary job. And on behalf of the council, I would just like to express our thanks to every single person who is a member of the Potsdam family. So thank you, everybody. Lots of things have changed since we were on campus last. You'll hear about some of them. The president in her report is going to talk about some people who have either shifted roles or assumed new roles. And I'm not going to take the time to go on about that because we'll let Kristen do it. And I know that most people are zoomed out at this moment in time. Never thought I'd ever say those words, and I got a camera and a microphone and the whole thing. So it's been interesting. One of the biggest changes has been that we have a new chancellor, Chancellor James Milatris, who's a friend of mine, so I'll call him Jim with no disrespect intended. Jim joins us, and I still find this hard to believe, as the first chancellor of SUNY ever to have been a SUNY graduate. That still blows my mind. And I'm not sure about this part, but he may be the first chancellor who has ever served as a president of a SUNY campus, because Jim comes to us from Empire State College. Now, you may have heard some controversy with the faculty senate and the student government that they were concerned about the hiring of Dr. Milatris. But it was pretty clear from their resolutions as well as discussions that the problem wasn't with Jim or his qualifications. The problem was with the SUNY Board of Trustees and the fact that they did not go through the usual process for selecting a chancellor, which would have included faculty and student members of the search committee, just as it does locally when we're doing a search for a campus president. So I just want to put that in perspective. I'm not negating it. It's there. They have an understandable reason to feel a little upset about it. But I think that time will prove that Jim is the right person for us at the right time. So that's my message to you on that. And the final thing, two final things. One, we have an addition to the agenda today. This morning, you all received an email with a resolution of appreciation for Bernadette Tiapo, who left us a couple of months ago as our Chief Diversity Officer. And we apologize we didn't get it to you until this morning. And the final thing is the annual conference of the Association of College Councils and Trustees will be held virtually this year for the first time. Some of you, I know Harold's been before, I think Molly has. And some of you haven't been before because you're that new to the council. But I would strongly encourage you to attend. You should have gotten an email this week. Did you get an email from Thierry Vandenberg?
Yes.
Yes.
Harold, Jeff, did you get it?
I'm not sure if I got it.
All right, Alex, did you get it?
I'm sure if everyone else did, then I probably
I got it.
Okay. All right, well, I'll ask Nicole. Nicole, I'm sure you have a copy. Yes, Nicole? Okay,
Yes, I will resend it so everybody has it in their email.
all right, thank
That
you.
would help.
Just so you know, it is going to be on Friday, October 16th from 10 a.m. to noon. Now, this is usually a conference that's 2 nights and a half a day. So it's a greatly compressed schedule, and we've been advised that the chancellor will be there And there's an opportunity to ask questions. You can send them in advance. And I imagine they may be also an opportunity to do that live. And Tiffany, I'd strongly encourage you as one of the brand new council members to hop on. It's usually very informative, and this is easy. It's not going to be a cost to anybody. So please put that on your calendar, and I hope to see you there. Okay, so next on our agenda is the President's report. I'm going to turn it over to President Esterberg.
Thank you so much, June, and welcome. I can hardly believe that our last College Council meeting was in February, and as I was looking over the minutes, it feels like a decade or more ago that we actually gathered in person and had all of these amazing student events face to face. So I can't tell you how good it is to see your faces, even if you are all, even in little tiny rectangles on my screen. I'm so glad you're here. And Tiffany, let me give a special warm welcome to you. I think having our SGA president as part of our College Council is a really important tradition, and so glad to see you here. Glad you were able to make it, and I look forward to your participation this academic year. There have been so many changes since our last meeting, so let me just start. Let me start with the people, because I'm going to talk a lot about COVID and some of the changes on campus in a little bit. Let me just start with the people. As June mentioned, we lost our really extraordinary Chief Diversity Officer, Dr. Bernadette Tiapo, to a position in Oneonta where her family had been living. And let me just say that as our inaugural Chief Diversity Officer, Dr. Tiapo really changed our campus for the better. And I still miss her every day. So I'm grateful that later in the meeting, we'll be taking up a resolution for appreciation. And I'm also incredibly grateful that Dr. Claudia Ford, Associate Professor of Environmental Studies, has agreed to step in as an interim this academic year. And Dr. Ford, I can see you on my screen. I know you'll have a chance to say hello, but let me just introduce Dr. Ford, and let me share with you how grateful I am for her willingness to accept this role during what is one of the most challenging periods in our history for race relations. And so, Dr. Ford, in your weeks, you've already made a huge impact, and I really look forward to the progress we're going to continue to make over this year. And you'll have a chance to talk a little bit later. So I'm just going to ask. She's started with running shoes, but obviously will not have a very full report because she's just beginning. So, to members of the council, I hope you'll welcome her with open arms and open heart. We also lost our athletic director, Sharif Hashim. He left for position, again, closer to his daughter. So I'm very grateful both for his contributions, and we have with us Mark Mishak, who's serving as our interim athletic director. And if anybody doesn't know, you should not admit that you don't know who Mark is, because he has been our very successful women's soccer coach. And I think it's an open secret that women's soccer really does continue to be my very favorite sport. So if you didn't know Mark already, you can pretend you knew him. But he's, again, I'm grateful for his willingness to take on this role in a time when the decisions we have to make about athletic participation are very complicated and very, very challenging. So Mark, thank you for your service. I will say we will be searching over the course of this year for Vice President for Enrollment Management. As you know, Ron Brown has been serving very capably as our interim VP for Enrollment Management. And we will be searching for a new Chief Diversity Officer over the course of this year. And there is, just so you know, there is a statewide hiring freeze and a statewide spending freeze. But because of the critical importance of these positions, we've been given permission to go ahead and search. I also am very glad that June introduced already our new Chancellor, Jim Milatris. You may not know that he served his freshman year here on Potsdam's campus, and I think he's got a special place in his heart for Potsdam. But I will also say that he has been an extraordinary leader on SUNY's response to COVID-19. And I think he's in large part responsible for getting the campus's resources for some of the testing that we've been engaged in. And I'll talk a lot more about testing later. Now, I know you're eager to hear about the campus and how we are doing. And so let me just say that I am so thankful for our students and for all they are doing to keep our campus and our community safe. I am so grateful for our faculty, for their creativity in providing a warm Potsdam teaching and learning experience, despite the challenges of Zoom and the need to do so much socially distant. We have about 1,100 students on campus in the residence halls. We've got another 900 or so in the community. And then the rest are either learning remotely, either in their home communities or on our Watertown site. We're at about 3,100 students total, which is low for us, but frankly, much better than we had expected as we were trying to make our projections at the early stages of the epidemic. We knew that so many of our students had been so very much affected by COVID-19, whether the loss of family incomes, whether the loss of family members, whether the uncertainty in their family situations. So we tried to make our estimates for the fall very low because we know that so many students have been so deeply, deeply affected. I am really delighted to say that our continuing and returning students have been very, very strong. We have just under 80% of our first year students, or first, second, and third year students returning this fall, which is just extraordinary for us. This is just about 80%, just under 80%. And I think it speaks to the resilience of our students and also the incredible work of our faculty and our staff in reaching out to students, trying to make sure that they knew that even when they went remote, that we were still here for them. And I have to say, when I go on campus, I want to cheer up as I think about our students. When I talk with students, they are just so grateful to be here on campus. In fact, just this morning around 7:30, I was running downtown and I saw a student walking to campus with his flute. And so I just engaged in a conversation. And again, he's grateful to be back here, grateful that he can be a part of the Potsdam community, even though so much of what we're doing is remote. So I can't speak more for our students, our faculty, and the entire Potsdam family for their resilience, their willingness to just put their shoulders to the wheel and do what needs to be done. And I want to have a special shout out to our cleaning staff. They were here through the entire period, and they are the ones who are on the front lines making sure that our campus is clean, it's sanitized, and it's safe. And I couldn't say more. I'll just share another story of one of the cleaners in Lehman Hall, who was one of our most concerned when the virus first came, because he was very much at risk of great complications. He was afraid, as so many were, because he didn't know about the spread of the disease. He didn't know what would keep him safe. And when I talked to him a couple of weeks ago, he said, you know, I feel perfectly safe here in Lehman. The students, they're all wearing masks. And he said, and even when they leave their room and they forget, they run back and say, oh my goodness, I forgot my mask. And this person was probably the most fearful of the cleaning staff that I had encounters with back in March and April. So I am just so grateful to their work, and then to the work of our incredible ERRG. This is our Emergency Resource and Response Group, to our Student Health Services, who have been doing testing, about which I'll speak in a moment, to the entire campus community, from Nicole as Chief of Staff down to every single supervisor in maintenance and facilities, for all the work they've done. It's been an extraordinary effort, and it has taken every single person on campus, and I couldn't be more grateful. To enrollment and budget, there are clearly ongoing concerns. We know that our first-time full-time students are down, and this has so much to do with the uncertainty of students and great uncertainty with state finances. State payments for TAP and for EOP have been delayed. And these are two of the most important programs for low-income students in New York State. Excelsior funding has also been delayed, and first-year students, it's not clear whether ultimately they'll be able to even apply for the Excelsior. So there's a great deal of uncertainty among students, and frankly, there's a great deal of uncertainty on the campus. As you may know, we received a 20% cut in our Bay State allocation for the last fiscal year, and we're still waiting while the state determines what kinds of cuts will need to be made permanent for this fiscal year. Certainly the federal situation and whether there will be and when there will be additional support for states and municipalities and for higher education institutions as we deal with COVID-19. Those are some of the pieces that we're waiting for. So it's a very uncertain budget situation, but a very concerning one at the same time. And clearly something that as a campus, we are working very hard to respond to and very hard to adjust our spending to our budget realities. So I will share with you that we are working very hard with our governance partners, and especially the Fiscal Affairs and Strategic Planning Committee, to again make sure that we reduce our expenses in light of our reduced revenues. So let me just dive right in. Maybe I can answer any questions there, but I suspect that you've got questions about the COVID update. So my thought was I'd jump into the COVID update and then allow time for any questions you might have. And I'm going to apologize for the length of my report, but so much has happened since we last met. I did share with you in my written report the protocols we took as we brought students back to campus. I am delighted to share with you that after the 2 rounds of testing every single student who is either on campus or lives within a 15-mile radius, we have had no new positive cases. We tested this last week, faculty and staff who have a reason to be on campus. Every single test came back negative. So I just can't say enough for the mask wearing, the social distancing, everything the campus community has been doing to keep ourselves safe. We can't let this up, but so far what we've been doing is working. And we're going to continue testing using the pooled saliva test developed by Upstate. We're going to continue testing every student on campus and within a 15-mile radius every other week, and faculty and staff members, again, every other week, so that over a course of a 2-week period, every student and every faculty and staff member who's on campus will be tested.
Excuse me a minute. Tiffany, did you have a question? Oh, because the hand popped up. Yours
Yeah,
did too, Nicole.
Yeah, it's the applause.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right.
So yes, if you go down to the reactions, you can applause, you can give a thumbs up, you can give, shout outs, but I can't say enough for the work of the entire campus community to do what needs to be done. And I know that other campuses have had some great challenges. I'm sure you've read about our sister campuses at Oneonta specifically, where what started out as a very, very small cluster of cases very quickly exploded into a large cluster of cases, and then the need to move to remote learning. But right now in our community, and I'll say all of the 4 campuses in our region have had a very similar result. And I will say it's the result of each of the campuses collaborating on our testing strategies, our strategies for working with students in the community, the very, very close relationship we've all developed with our community public health department and with our local health facilities. I can't say enough about that work. So with that said, I do want to share with you that in response to some of the outbreaks on other campuses, our new chancellor posed uniform sanctions in response to COVID-19 student violations. And this was in large part in response to gatherings, parties, and some of the events that students and others engaged in on other campuses that resulted in very significant spikes of the coronavirus. I want to emphasize that this has not been the case on our campus. And I want to shout out especially to our student athletes who have been a leader, and our Greek organizations, again, who've shown great leadership. We have not had these on our campus. And I really want to send a shout out to our students, our Black Student Alliance, who's been incredibly careful in thinking about how they want to make sure that they are maintaining the safety of our campus community. We've had, for the most part, an extraordinary response, but other campuses haven't. And so what Chancellor Milatris put into place effective yesterday was a set of uniform responses, uniform sanctions. And for the attorneys in the room, Molly, you'll see that this is very carefully crafted not to usurp the College Council's authority. So I do want to share with you that it was not intended to usurp this body's responsibility for student policies. It's rather intended very narrowly to provide a range of sanctions for violations. And I'll share with you that they are quite serious, and especially those violations for a student who knows that they are either positive for COVID-19 or knows that they have been in close contact with someone who's positive, and then attends a gathering. But there are other sanctions that are that are harsher than we have been imposing on our campus, because we've frankly taken a more developmental approach. So I do want to just share with you that these guidelines went into effect. We've had 2 notices out to students, but we will continue to work to make sure that students understand the consequences, but also continue to point out the really wonderful work that students have done. And every time I see a student with a mask on, I try and appreciate that they are doing the right things. When I see students gathering outside 6 feet apart, I try and, again, affirm that they are doing the right things, because we know that when students have the opportunity to be recognized for the good things that they're doing, and when they show the things that they can do, like, do their workouts outside, do their events and activities outside, they're more likely to be, they're more likely to comply with the guidelines in place. So with that, and with my apologies for a very, very long report, I'm happy to take whatever questions you might have, and I'm sure you'll have some.
Okay, are there questions? Covered a lot of territory.
Tell you, it's a wholly different world than the one we left in February.
And just so you know, the guidelines that Kristen was just talking about from the Chancellor went into effect yesterday morning.
Yes.
So we're not really behind the curve. This all happened very quickly, and we already had our meeting scheduled for today. Are there questions?
Jane, or
Okay.
Joan? Kristen, we're now approaching the fall months,
Yes.
and how do you think the winters and the students are going to handle maybe not being able to go outside and
It's going to continue to be a challenge, and that's why we changed our schedule. So students will go home on November 20th, and for the Thanksgiving break, they'll have a little bit of a break then, and then the rest of their academic experience, the last few days of classes, and then their finals will be strictly remote, and that will make sure that they'll be safely home just as things are getting cold. We're currently scheduled for our spring semester to begin January 25th, and we'll do a similar testing regime when students come back. We'll make sure that they are that they quarantine, and then when they return, they'll immediately be tested. And then again, we'll have a compressed schedule, and they'll go home a little bit earlier, and we'll cancel spring break so that we don't have so much of that going back and forth. We do, as students continue to test negative, we do have the opportunity to open up a few more of our inside facilities. So our field house will be available for some socially distanced work. Our ice hockey rink will be available for some socially distanced skating. And then we'll be able to open up some of our indoor lounges so that residential students will be able to have, again, some smaller gatherings that are within the safe limits, as long as the testing continues to go in the way that it does. But it is going to be difficult, and we're just going to have to keep trying to find things that students safely can do, both virtually and in the spaces that they have available.
Thank you. Are there
Right.
other questions?
Sounds like you got a plan.
We have amazing students, and that's why it's working.
Are there other questions on the COVID-19 update? If not, we'll move along. Thank you, Kristen.
Well, thank you all. I'm so grateful.
And better late than never, I declare that we have a quorum. We not only have a quorum, we have every single member of the College Council present today. So next on the agenda is the parking regulation amendments, and this is going to require council action. Now, are you leading the discussion on this, or is Eric? Or
I think, June, if I may, I can start with some comments about this, if that's okay.
it's okay, but first I want to express on behalf of the council our condolences for the loss of your dad.
My father has not passed away.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry, I did again.
Okay, well, thank you for that, but no, I just spoke to him a couple days
Oh,
ago.
all right.
He's alive and healthy.
Sorry, I call it COVID brain.
That's okay. You know, I appreciate that if that had happened, but thankfully it had not, so.
Good, okay.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to just talk briefly about this. As June mentioned, one of the purviews of College Council has to do with our parking regulations, and several of you that have been on College Council for a while know that in the not too distant past, we made some pretty significant revisions to these. These revisions, thankfully, excuse me, that are here for your review today are not as substantial, but I believe are significant. And I would just highlight what they are quickly, and they're underlined in the document. We have, for a number of years now, exempted any of our students who are veterans from having to pay any of our parking registrations and recording fees. This document and the revisions to it does expands that to also exempt any of our employees, including Pacey's employees, who are also veterans, to be exempt from having to pay for their annual parking registration. We also expanded, as part of that, the documents that would need to be submitted to substantiate that somebody was a veteran, and this is based on consultation with our Veterans Affairs Coordinator on campus, that there are different documents and different process for that. So that is largely the change in this document. The only other thing that is subtly changed down a little bit further is we did create an additional parking lot on campus to expand available parking behind Maxi, especially for large events, the Section 10 events, the Wine and Craft Show. There were some tennis and basketball courts that were converted into an additional parking lot, which is now known as 30A. And that parking in that lot and some of the other for events, we would not, we would allow free parking there for public events. So that highlights the changes in terms of process. Once College Council here endorses it, we then have to send it to Albany. I believe it's a period of 60 days that it is out for open comment, and then it will come back through SUNY Legal to College Council for final approval before we can adopt these as a campus into our parking regulations. So I'll stop there and see if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Eric.
This is Alex Hammond. I'm just wondering, you kind of hinted at documentation of proving that you are a veteran for these services. Is that as simple as a DD 214, or is there more that goes into that? Just interested.
Sure. Yeah, Alex, thanks for your question. The DD 214 is one of the documents that is acceptable, but there is also, and I'm looking at this because I'm not all that familiar with the military documentation. There is a DD 215, there's a DD Form 2, as well as VA medical identifications, and there's a number of things. I don't have to read them to you, but it is as simple as the DD 214, and that used to be the only form that we accepted. But in working with our campus veterans affairs coordinator, there are a number of other proofs of being a veteran, and we wanted to make sure that we were accepting and inclusive of that other documentation as well.
Okay, so it's basically as long as you can show some form of, okay, all right. I didn't know if it was, you had to show a DD 214 and the veterans health benefits or something like that, but it's basically one form of identification as a veteran.
And
That's correct.
Spelled right out in the regulations, and it includes the ID card from the county clerk.
Perfect.
Yeah, we wanted to make it as simple and as inclusive as we can and not cumbersome, which is why we expanded it to accept a number of other documentations or IDs.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Eric? Okay, hearing none, as Eric explained, this is not a formal resolution. This is just us endorsing the changes to allow the campus to send it to SUNY for approval, and then this will come back to us for a formal resolution of adoption. So I'm asking for a motion to approve the changes and allow the campus to submit the revised plan to SUNY Central. Is there such a motion?
I'll make the
So
motion.
moved.
Okay, made by Alex, seconded by
Second.
Harold. Was that you,
Yep.
Harold?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? None, carried unanimously. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the Title IX policy changes. And again, this is to be sure that the campus is in line with the United States Department of Education requirements regarding Title IX. So I will turn it over for further explanation.
June, I think that's also going to be me, if that's okay.
Yep.
So again, one of the key, many key functions that College Council has is to review and approve our code of conduct, which includes policies and procedures for student conduct. As June just described, on August 14th, the federal government passed new regulations about how Title IX cases on college campuses were going to be investigated and adjudicated for both students and employees. New York State was among several states that tried to file injunctions to get it delayed. Nonetheless, they, through the legal procedures, were not successful in gaining an injunction. So the new federal regulations took effect on August 14th, and all college campuses throughout the country, public and private, were directed to adopt these new regulations. And so what you have in the folder are the changes that we needed to make in the adjudication of our Title IX cases through the Student Conduct Office that were essentially dictated to us by the Federal Department of Education. So we obviously have to follow these, but we also, know that College Council needs to review them and be part of that process as well too. So I would also say that as part of the meeting here today, Dr. Patrick Meldrum is here. Many of you have met him before. He is our Director of Student Conduct and Community Standards. And I want to recognize and thank Patrick, who really worked hard to understand what these regulations are and work with SUNY Legal and the Student Conduct Institute to create these documents so that we could adopt and use these and be in compliance with the new federal regulations. So I'll certainly be happy to take any questions, and I know Patrick would be as well too.
Patrick, did you want to say anything?
No, I think Eric covered it all.
Okay, but thank you for your work on this. We appreciate it. And also for the attorney that's here, Molly. Just so you know, this came from SUNY Legal. Okay, it's not something we made up, right, Eric?
Yeah, correct.
And so this doesn't have to go back to SUNY, because I assume because it came from there, right?
Yeah, essentially what was really nice with this is that SUNY Legal through the Student Conduct Institute basically provided us some boilerplate language for these documents. We did do some slight tweaks and tailoring to make sure it was specific to Potsdam, but what you all see is virtually identical to what all other SUNY campuses are having to adopt and use based on the new federal regulations. So yes, this has been well vetted through SUNY Legal and the Student Conduct Institute that SUNY coordinates.
And Eric, can I add, after we did the changes to make it Potsdam specific, we did send it back to SUNY Legal and they reviewed those changes as well.
So what we're looking for here is a resolution of the council approving the Title IX with revisions. Is that right, Eric?
So moved.
Correct.
Okay, moved by Rich,
So moved.
Second.
second by Molly. Any discussion? And all of these things in all of their glory were sent to all of you. I'm sure you read every line of every page. But hearing no further discussion, we'll go for a vote. All those in favor of us adopting the revised Title IX regulation?
Aye.
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 Aye. Unanimous. I'm assuming I have to call for any opposed. Hearing none. Okay, you adopted unanimously. Thank you very much for that. And thanks to everybody who did all the work. We appreciate it. Next on the agenda is a presentation on the Middle States Reaccreditation self-study. Those of you that have been on the council for a while are familiar with Middle States and why it is important for us to be accredited by them, and that this also requires periodic review. And are Julie Dold and Gordon Plague with us?
Yeah, June, so we're being so efficient with our time that Gordon is still in class. So I would ask the council if we could table that presentation and start with reports.
Yep.
I would also ask the council if we can shift Ronald Brown's presentation, or sorry, update earlier in the list, as I know that he has an obligation and that would allow him to be in multiple places that he needs to be this morning.
Okay, then, so are we doing the Middle States thing later in the agenda or no?
Yes, Gordon will be out of class in the next few minutes. So
All right,
I'll
so you'll let us
know when
know.
they've arrived.
All right, before we do that and move on to the reports, I want to do the resolution for Bernadette Tiapo. Everybody got that this morning, yes, in your email?
Yes.
Yes.
I did.
Okay. Is there a motion for the council to support the resolution and for us to have it sent to Bernadette?
So moved.
Moved by Harold. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I think the resolution pretty much says it all. She did a great job. We wish her well. And some people may not know that during the entire time she was here at Potsdam, her family was in Oneonta. So, you know, that was a tough haul. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of us passing the resolution and having a copy of it sent to Bernadette?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, then thank you very much for that. So now we will move on to our reports, and we'll start with Ronald Brown, our interim vice president for enrollment management. Ron?
Good morning, everyone.
Hello.
It's great to be with you again. Wish that we could be in person, but this is better than not being present, right?
Absolutely.
I want to make a few comments about the report. You have the report. I'm not going to go through every detail, but I think we'll mainly talk about the enrollment part of it. And if you have questions about the financial aid part or the student accounts portion of the report, I'll be happy to answer those. As the president alluded to our enrollment, we're down this year compared to last year. What we ended up with was basically 125 fewer new students than what we had the previous year. Looking at the goal that we had set for ourselves last year, which was 675 freshmen and 225 transfers, we actually ended up 20.88% below what the freshman goal was and 18.22% below what the transfer goal was. In terms of where we ended up compared to last year's final numbers, we were actually 14.32% behind that. Everything is not because of COVID, of course, but COVID is a huge part of where our numbers are. All of the research organizations around the country were predicting 20 to 25% loss in enrollments. I'm very pleased to report that that didn't happen to us. So we ended up doing better than what we anticipated that we would do and what the experts anticipated that we would do. Looking at next year, looking at the overall situation, my gut feeling is that we should shoot for 600 freshmen and 200 transfers. And this is a proposed amount and has not been approved, by the college per se yet. But that's what I'm thinking, from my professional, experience, that this might be the best thing to shoot for. And that would be a 12.35% increase in this year's freshman numbers and an 8.69% increase in this year's transfer numbers, should we achieve those numbers. We are doing a number of things, a lot of it because of COVID-19, that is part of our strategies for this next recruiting cycle. Obviously, we're going to do a lot of the things that we normally do in admissions, financial aid, and so forth. But some of the things that we, want to mention at this point, include the ones in the report. Our plan to increase the recruiting funnel. The plan is to increase it to 41%. If we can find money to do more, then we'll do more. This year we had 46,000 prospects in our recruiting funnel. And we're shooting for a minimum of 65,000 prospects. And of course, these are people that we want to try to reach and educate about what we have to offer and convince them to raise their hand and say that they're interested in us. So that's the bottom of the funnel. And, we have to have, as many people in the bottom of the funnel as we can to be able to achieve the number of applications, number of admitted students, and number of deposits that we need, to meet our goal. So this is a fundamental strategy, for, this next cycle. We have to have a richer recruiting funnel, and that's what we're shooting for. And my understanding is that, we have the funding, to at least get us to the 65,000. If we can find additional funds, it would be lovely to be able to get to 100,000 prospects because our yield percentages show that that's actually what we would need, if we wanted to try to strive for a freshman class of 700. So that's where we are with regards to that. Our transition from all of the travel recruiting activities that we traditionally do, have been converted to virtual. We're doing virtual open houses. We're doing virtual chat sessions. We're doing virtual high school visits. We're doing virtual high school counselor, sessions basically, as well. And these chat sessions that we have, actually, we're also doing, we're also doing spotlights, virtual spotlights. And the faculty, academic departments and so forth are signing up to participate in them. We actually have 22 of them scheduled for October. Every session that we have on the calendar is booked for October, which is fantastic. Shows the participation for our faculty and our academic units. That's great. So, there's a lot of virtual things that we're doing. I think that we're obviously saving money, and the plan is to spend some of the money that we would normally spend on travel to spend it, and feeding the recruiting funnel, the money that we need, to buy search names and stuff like that. We're extending our traditional market recruiting areas. And one of the benefits of the crisis that we are in for COVID-19 is that we cannot really travel, so we can reach out to people in the other states around us that we normally can't reach out to because we don't go there. So we are going to be recruiting heavily in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Ohio, all of the New England states, and the 2 Canadian provinces that border us. Last year, we had 300 inquiries from Pennsylvania, but we did not make any trips into Pennsylvania to try to recruit students there. But we have interest there. We had 70 inquiries from Ohio. And of course, from the New England states, we had about 300, so, I think that we, should be able to see some success from that. And, that's, in our strategy for this year. We also have the Friends of New York Scholarship, which SUNY approved for us to begin as a pilot project. Started late in April, so it was very late. So this year will be the first full cycle with that scholarship. And that hopefully is going to help us to increase our numbers from New England states and from the 2 Canadian provinces. We're also going to be targeting Catholic high schools, which we have not done in the past. We're going to be targeting charter schools as well. We're going to be creating a recruiting funnel for Canada and other international students. And in fact, we've actually made arrangements to start a project with an outfit called Docity, docity.com. So we're doing that. We are using some of the manpower from some of our staff. 2 of our campus staff people are going to be helping admissions, during this recruiting cycle, especially during the fall semester. So, hopefully, that will be beneficial to us. And marketing and communications is doing so much for admissions. I can't say enough about everything that Mindy Thompson's outfit has been doing for admissions. A huge part of our success, has to be credited to the marketing activities, the communication plans that they have been building for us for admissions, and they're striving to do more. And not only are we much better off this year than we were last year when I came in September, but we're going to be better off as we work through this cycle as well. We have also hired a new financial aid director. Our director retired, and so just a few weeks ago, actually, I think September 14th was the beginning date for our new director, and that is Tommy Ann Russell. Tommy Ann has about 15 years of experience. She put in, I think, about 7 or 8 years at St. Lawrence University. She was also at Clarkson, and so, you know, we're very happy to have her on board. She was already working for us for the last 2 years, you know, as an advisor, financial aid advisor, and so now she's our director, and we're very happy to have her. Are there any questions about the enrollment topics or, you know, any of the other 2 departments?
Any questions from the council?
It's Jeff Cole. I don't know if it's a question or where it fits in, but it could help, you know, with enrollment. But is there any thought, has there been any thought of, as we hear about other campuses that have problems with COVID, focusing on the positive and seeing if, June, with your relationship with the chancellor and his relationship of being a freshman at Potsdam, is there any thought of inviting him to the campus and to, I don't want to boast about it because it can turn quickly, but to have a success story? Because I think that if that were to happen, it could boost morale or reemphasize what students are doing, what faculty are doing on campus, and to a pat on the back and say, job well done, keep it up. But it could also make the rounds in different public relations or marketing ways to, you know, kind of show what Potsdam does and you know, how successful the campus has been. So, you know, I don't know if I should have brought that up during the president's report or here. It kind of fits in both bills probably, but just a thought. And again, I'm cautious with it because I know it can turn very, very quickly. But is there any thought of inviting the chancellor to SUNY Potsdam?
Well, let's just say that the day that he was appointed chancellor, I sent him an email and invited him to SUNY Potsdam, and I will be following up on that.
All right.
With regard to your question, I'd like to you know, say that one of the things that we feel that we can benefit from in our strategic enrollment management planning, which I actually, you know, skipped over that. I can make a couple of comments about that. One of the things that we feel is an opportunity is, you know, in our marketing activities to, you know, talk about the safety that students are experiencing here. And, you know, we don't have, you know, a big issue, you know, with COVID-19 and stuff. So we are going to be talking about that in our marketing communications. And if I could for a second, you know, just bring you up to date with the strategic enrollment management. We do have a strategic enrollment management team, and we have started putting together a plan. We have, you know, completely analyzed, you know, all of the data, the history of the college going back many years. We have also spent quite a bit of time in the last month and a half looking at our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, and the threats against us going forward, all with regards to enrollment management. You know, there is a campus master plan and so forth, but this is all for enrollment. And appreciate the feedback that I've gotten from foundation members, from the alumni, from our faculty, from our staff, you know, as we tried to take a deep look at our SWOT, you know, characteristics. And I think that the outcome of that is going to contribute to the goals and objectives that we establish, you know, for this plan. So at a certain point, the plan will be shared with, you know, with various entities, you know, within the college and so forth. And so I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on that.
Thank you, Ron. And I assume the College Council would be one of those bodies that it'll be shared with.
Certainly.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
I'm not really too computer literate, but where does social media fit into any recruiting ideas that you have? Can you go out on social media on a wide basis for recruiting?
We did do some social media marketing. Mindy can talk more about that, when she has a chance to speak. But social media is a part of the package. We did have a campaign during this past cycle with Trampoline that Mindy's office put together and ran for us. And we're looking at the potential of doing another venture, another campaign with that same entity, for our spring recruiting, efforts and everything. So I'll let Mindy talk more about that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Blair Medora, the chair of our faculty senate, said that he had a comment to make.
Thank you, June. I just thought this might be a good time to really help emphasize for the council how difficult our budget situation is and how much enrollment plays into it. I know that Ron's group is doing great work, and Ron, in his professional opinion, suggested that a good goal for next year would be 800 students coming in, 600 freshmen, 200 transfers. If we were repeating that for 4 years, we would be 4 years from now roughly in the range of 3,200 students on campus. And yet our budget as it stands is right-sized for about 4,700 students. Without some drastic change in the way that SUNY funds us, some drastic change in the way tuition works, without some drastic change in the number of employees on our campus, we're in a budget hole for a long time. I think my numbers are pretty accurate. The president and our Keith Kaplan could correct me if I'm wrong, but we are in a hole here. And this is, I'm not saying that Ron has to miraculously produce 1,500 more students. We're in the Northeast. Recruiting students is tough right now. They're doing great work to recruit students, but our long-term position can't stay the way it is right now.
Thank you, Blair. Dr. Esterberg, do you have any comment?
I think Blair's assessment is actually pretty correct. There are opportunities that for graduate enrollments, for example, for other student markets for early college, but we have to make our student numbers and our personnel numbers align over time. And SUNY has been incredibly helpful, and I know in Keith's financial report, he'll talk a little bit about that. SUNY has been incredibly helpful to us, but the reality is that the revenues do not match the expenditures. And we are in a long-term position where we've got to right size.
Thank you. Nicole, are we ready for the middle states yet or no?
No, if we could continue with reports, that would be great.
Okay. So doing that, I think with the permission of the council, we'll go a little bit out of order and allow Keith Kaplan to continue our budget discussion.
Absolutely. It's nice segue from our previous topic. And so we haven't met in the last 7.5 months, and a huge amount has changed. However, we were in a deficit position before that. We were on a deficit reduction plan that we had worked out with SUNY System Administration, and we had every reason to believe that we would be successful in carrying out that plan. So our targets for this year included reducing what we call OTPS spending, other than personal spending, and also to try to, as much as possible, capitalize on vacancies, retirements, resignations, et cetera, in an effort to try to, as the president just said, right size ourselves and to match better between our employee count and our student count. So the crisis that we've had over the last 7 months that we've shared with the rest of the world has certainly complicated things in an incredible way. There have been enrollment impacts, as Ron has spoken to. Luckily for us, and also as kind of a testament to the teamwork and planning that went into the enrollment planning for this year, we were able to exceed the projections that we provided to system administration. Getting those students, the continuing students numbers the way that we did was very important, because we were looking at approximately $4 million impact on just that. And by exceeding the expectations, it's about half of that. So it was really very fortunate that that the students came back to the degree that they did. That's very helpful. However, we are in a deficit position, and the deficits are worsened, firstly by the fact that enrollments are down from last year, but also, as the president indicated before, state tax allocations have been reduced too. The state is in a very, very difficult position. I think anybody who watches the news knows this. And this is impacted in a whole bunch of different ways, including the fact that there are direct legislative appropriations to the SUNY campuses that are fixed on an annual basis. So fiscal 21 was fixed in place when the budget was being developed, and it was on April 1st, but with the ability by the budget director to make cuts if needed, and that is expected. Obviously, if there is a big stimulus bill that provides state and local aid, that would greatly reduce the pressure on the state and will greatly reduce the pressure on the SUNY system, and would hopefully reduce the amount of cuts that we would receive for this year. But right now we're being told to plan for about a 25% cut from the legislative appropriation, which is about a $2.7 million impact for the year. So like I said, we started out with knowing that we were going to have some deficits that we were going to work with, but this is it's a more arduous task because of the headwinds that were added by the COVID crisis. And it just further adds to the need, with student enrollments having been decreased, it just makes it that much more difficult to try to match the labor force to the student count with the levers that we have available to us. One thing I've tried to accentuate to the campus, and we've done some communications with the campus community, is the fact that 85% of our spending is on people. Out of that 85, about 78 of it is full-time regular salaries, and 7 of that 85 is temporary services, but 85% people. And so you can cut postage stamps and toner for the printers as much as you want, but you can't cut your way out of large deficits because of just the natural mix. When you're running a college, it's just your stock and trade people who teach the classes and the people who support the mission. The other thing I want to kind of draw attention to is the fact that we are also spending money to try to keep the campus safe and to try to change modality for the coursework. So I did outline that a little bit in our notes, but we are hopeful that we can get some reimbursement for some of those from some of that spending. One very major impact from COVID from the spring was that we made massive refunds to our students who were residential students for room and board, and for all students for certain fees. And that was the right thing for the students. It was also a very large impact financially on our campus, on all of the SUNY campuses. The impact to us was, if you include PACES, was initially $5.4 million in refunds to students. And then through the CARES Act, we received $2.1 million in relief, initially 2.2 or so, and then another 200,000 later that we're using to help offset. However, it still was a net loss of over $1 million from just that spring refund incident. So it was really just an example of one of those things that when we were sitting together in February, that there would be no way we would have, been able to anticipate that happening, but it happened actually just a few weeks later. And with that, there's also some other cuts that are taking place that are affecting programs. The president mentioned before, EOP, mentioned TAP. These are all things that we as a campus are going to need to, we're going to need to try to keep the impacts from affecting our students. And all of these have very serious financial implications. So to the extent that those cuts get blunted by some additional funding, would be incredibly helpful for our campus. And through all of this, as the president had said, SUNY system has been very supportive, has been providing us with the funds to allow us to accomplish our mission, and they've been very supportive of the campus. So we're very grateful. We're very grateful for that. So with that, does anybody have any questions?
Questions for Keith?
Yes.
Go ahead,
Go ahead.
Steve.
Wait, is there more than one, or am I?
Go ahead, Mr. Supervisor.
Don't fight.
Yes, I just was wondering, I mean, here with all these cuts or refunds that you had to give, and the 20%, that magic 20% that we're all getting shorted. I mean, how is SUNY going to handle these shortages coming up? I mean, you just can't dig to the bottom when there's nothing there.
It's an excellent point. There are some levers that they do have at that side, and I would defer to SUNY system to talk more broadly. But one example, let's say on the dormitory side, the dormitory bonds were refinanced for this year and for next year. So instead of making the customary payouts that we would have to make, we as a campus are affected by that. The current year payouts were refinanced for this year and for next year because of the anticipation of the impacts of COVID on the number of students who would be in housing and just the general cash pressures that would exist throughout the system. And that's a savings for our campus, about $3 million on the dormitory funds. So that's an example of the kinds of steps that are available to SUNY and to the state is to look at financing on a broader basis than just state legislative appropriation.
So do you bond locally? So SUNY Potsdam lets out the bonds for your dormitories, or is that done?
No, that was done centrally, that refinancing, but it affected all of the campuses.
Thank you. Alex, did you have a question?
Yeah, so I know Steve and I are more familiar with, how municipalities can receive FEMA funding. And I know for us, it's very specific. There's a certain dollar amount, which I believe is $3,300 you got to get to. And it's very specific on, certain types of, disinfectants. And, it only accounts for overtime or, salaries for personnel who worked during COVID if they were doing COVID specific jobs that were outside of their job description. Is there any way that SUNY Potsdam qualifies for any FEMA funding? And if so, have we hit that whatever threshold in order to try to get some of that back?
If I may, so that's an excellent question, and it's a very relevant question. So we are being a campus of the system. This is being done at the system level. Frankly, it's being done at the state level. And there is a huge amount of work being done at system administration to collect data from the campuses on our spending. And we have to file a weekly report that includes expense items such as extra effort that's going in for COVID, PPE spending, spending on classroom modality changes, you name it. I mean, the refunds. At the same time, we also have to report when we receive money like the CARES Act money, but they know about that as well at the system administration level. So all that stuff is being coordinated in Albany. So Potsdam, like all of the campuses, is doing that reporting with the expectation that some of that money is then going to be FEMA eligible. So some of that spending is going to be FEMA eligible for reimbursement. And some of that money, hopefully, will also be reimbursed by some kind of state funding down the road, is kind of the anticipation. But you have no hope of getting reimbursement if you don't collect the data. So the idea here is collect the data now and then try to get the money as time goes on.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Keith? Well, we've all got our fingers crossed for the funding, Keith. Thank you very much. Right, we're going to move along with the reports. And Tiffany, I expect your report will be very brief considering you just got sworn in on Thursday, but the floor is yours.
Yeah, so we didn't get the chance to submit an actual one just because we haven't been in office for that long. But we did just get sworn in and are working on getting acquainted with our roles. And with that, we're finalizing our advisor and we're scheduling statewide training and conferences such as the ASGA that's next weekend. Our primary focus for the year is going to be improving mental health on and around campus. And we're working on reaching out to the student body to see what that's going to entail. And then continuing off of Callus's last report, we're still trying to spread word of mouth about what SGA is and what we do. And so we're working on advertising for the student government meetings and events in order to ensure the maximum amount of participation possible. This will also help us understand what the students want, and it will help them understand where their student activity fee is going to and why it's necessary, especially considering we have a vote on that this year. Any questions?
June, I think you're on mute.
On mute. Now I'm not. Thank you. Thank you, Tiffany. And again, I want to put in a plug for the Association of College Council and Trustees virtual meeting on Friday, October 16th. Yes, from 10 a.m. to noon. And it's important. Some of these questions could, it's an opportunity to hear it and share it with statewide council members and trustees across the state. So thank you for that. And thank you, Tiffany. Now we're going to move to Blair Medor. Blair is the president of the Faculty Senate, chair of the Faculty Senate, the head of the Faculty Senate. Go ahead, Blair.
Thanks, June. I'm the chair of the Faculty Senate. Although on other campuses, it goes by different names, so entirely understandable. I submitted a fairly lengthy report. There's a lot of things that have happened since we last met. I want to start by emphasizing some of the faculty perspective on changes that have taken place and things that have happened in the last, I guess it's almost 8 months now. And but before I do that, I just want to say that if you hear me complaining about anything or talking about how difficult things were for faculty, our administrators, most of whom are in the room right now, had it much worse. They did not have, in my opinion, nearly enough support from SUNY and from the governor's office in dealing with incredibly difficult situations. So I just wanted to get that out there right away. The transition to virtual teaching that took place in March, the faculty really appreciate the way that our administrators handled this. It was a terrible situation, but they were very wise in extending spring break for an extra week to give faculty a chance to prepare for the transition. And then they really did the right thing in that, especially the faculty of the staff in the CCI office stepped up and provided all kinds of training, resources, and equipment to allow faculty to begin to engage in virtual teaching. Those folks are heroes. They worked around the clock to really make this happen. And as much as there was many challenges continuing the spring semester, I think there was a tremendous amount of success. It's almost like we were all on sort of emergency mode continually throughout the entire spring semester. And I think because of that, I think we accomplished a tremendous amount. I would say that when summer came, everybody was hoping for a break, and the break never came. The expectations from the state in terms of how the college should plan for the fall were completely unreasonable. And that led to a lot of messages being sent to faculty that are really hard to deal with. We had to prepare for 15 weeks of completely virtual teaching, but we really wanted to have some courses that were actually taught face-to-face. Freshmen want to come to a school where they get to at least sit in the classroom for a few classes. And so how do you balance your choice to teach virtual or face-to-face? The plan of whether faculty had a choice to teach remotely or had to teach face-to-face took a long time to emerge. And when it did, it was still kind of confusing. In the end, it worked out beautifully. Pretty much everybody on campus was given the choice as to their modality for teaching, but it just took a long time to get to that point. And the confusion and the anxiety along the way was really terrible. Trying to teach, online, it's really hard for people to try to do this in a way that would meet the typical online teaching standards. Typically, you would spend hundreds of hours preparing a course in advance with the help of a course design instructor. And that obviously wasn't happening. So folks have been engaging in all kinds of learning and practices to try to make the most meaningful and engaging virtual and online experiences for our students. I think we have all learned tremendously, and we've done some great things, and it's going to change the way we work afterwards. I'll switch to talking a bit about reopening. You may know that the Faculty Senate entertained a motion about whether we should reopen or not. By the time we actually got to a vote, it was literally days before students were coming back. And so the vote in many ways became a gesture, a symbolic gesture, but we did vote against opening. And I think given the information that we had at the time, it was the right choice. I will say in Milatris's favor, one of the things that he did very quickly was require our campus and all campuses to do far more testing than we were able to put in our opening plan. This is no fault of Dr. Esterberg's. The funding, the support to provide that testing throughout the semester was not there until Dr. Milatris came along. And I think that, if we were to talk about the success story of what's happening here now, one of the reasons the success is happening and continuing is because we're able to engage in that rigorous testing. In fact, not just able, required and enabled to do that. I would also point out, I agree with June that the quibble that the Faculty Senate and the University Faculty Senate has with the appointment of Dr. Milatris is over process, not about him individually. In fact, I would point, I don't really know whether he's going to be a great chancellor. Everything I've seen so far looks incredibly positive. What upsets me tremendously is the possibility that he might be the best chancellor we ever had or ever will have, and yet his record is stained by this very political appointment that was done in the wrong way without proper consultation. And I'm upset on his behalf that that our board allowed that to happen. And in the midst of all this, there was many other things that happened. I'll just mention one and then take questions. Over the summer, a group of faculty of color came together and formed something that they're calling the Black Faculty Caucus, modeled after the Black Caucus of the Congress. I'm very pleased that they asked to actually be a formal committee of the Faculty Senate. And I was able, within our bylaws, to immediately make them an ad hoc committee of the faculty of the state of New York at Potsdam. And we intend to make them a permanent committee within our faculty senate structure. They have a very broad set of goals to address issues related to racial injustice on our campus, and frankly, more goals than any group of people or could possibly accomplish. But they're determined to work at it and to haul all of us along with them in working on it. And I think that leadership is tremendous, and they really deserve a lot of recognition for being willing to step forward and make that happen. They've already provided tremendous leadership for us. I think the last thing I'll say before I take questions is that this whole process, this emergency situation we've been in since March, has led to a lot of different ways that we do work together. There's a large number of task forces that were put together by President Esterberg. There's a large number of other structures in place to work at the problems we have. And it's led to unusual, but I think remarkably good shared governance, in that faculty are sitting in rooms with administrators talking very frankly and openly about how we change rules, how we do things, what we should be doing to support the students, what processes should be in place, in a way that before this happened, always happened in a much more formal way. And I really appreciate that engagement. And I think it bodes well for what we'll be able to do after the crisis is over. I'll stop there and take any questions.
Questions for Blair? Okay, hearing none. Thank you very much, Blair, and thank you for your work and the work of the Faculty Senate. Again, it's been said too many times already, but these are extraordinary times indeed, and everybody is stepping up to the plate to the best of their ability. So thank you again. Next, we'll move to our provost, Dr. Betty Bergeron, to give us the academic affairs report. Betty?
Thank you, June. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to new members. I do want to echo Blair's comments as well, particularly in terms of this emergency situation allowing us to think differently about how we work together and collaborate, and certainly the importance of communication and transparency within shared governance on this campus. And to that, I want to personally thank Blair for his leadership. There's a lot of work over the summer, and Blair was always there at meetings along with the other faculty leaders. So I know that I have shared my appreciation with the faculty and staff before, but I want to do that in this public forum as well. The faculty and staff at this institution are incredible and incredibly dedicated. A lot of work this summer, and I don't want to publicly thank you, Blair, for your leadership and for all of our colleagues that have made this happen. In terms of new members, I want to give a shout out to Interim Dean Jill Perron. She is new to this body. Jill was my associate provost and has stepped into the role as interim dean at Crane. If you have not met Jill before, she is also a faculty member in Crane in Voice. So glad to have Jill in this new leadership role as interim dean of Crane in this incredibly challenging time. So Jill, thank you for stepping up to that. It's really critical. For the academic affairs report, for this time I asked the deans and also Alan Hersker, who is the Director of Graduate and Continuing Educations, to do a brief summary of what is going on in their areas. So if you have any questions about their mini reports within the academic affairs report, I'm sure they can elaborate on some of the activities that are going on across our academic programs. I do want to mention real quickly that we recently did get final approval for our fully online master's in management. So we'll have both face-to-face and online options for that program. That's our second fully online program. The other is the Certificate of Advanced Study in College Teaching. So we're really looking forward to spreading the word and enrolling a lot of people in what will be an exceptional program. So thanks to everybody on that. Also want to give a shout out to the faculty for the incredibly innovative, forward-thinking new general ed program, our Potsdam Pathways. We started implementation of Potsdam Pathways this fall, an interesting time to start a new gen ed program for sure, within the middle of a pandemic, but I think it's a remarkably innovative and important framework for our campus. So it took a couple of years to put it together, a lot of work from a lot of people, but I couldn't be more proud of the final product. So kudos to everybody involved with that as well. So with that, if there are any questions for me or for the deans, I'll be more than happy to entertain them.
Questions? Betty, I have one question. I know Open SUNY's been around for quite a while, but now with the pandemic and the huge increase in virtual learning, have we been having any kind of an uptick in the Open SUNY people from, other places that are enrolling?
So, in terms of students at other campuses enrolling in our classes?
Yes.
Right. So we're still working on increasing our slate of approved online courses, which is different distinction from a virtual class. So taking a face-to-face class and just putting it temporarily in a remote environment. Alan Grant, our Dean of the School of Ed and Professional Studies, is our resident expert on online teaching, and we have been moving forward with communications with SUNY regarding expanding our presence on SUNY Online. There are some steps that we need to follow in that, but I know that Dean Grant's faculty in particular are very anxious to have us move forward in different designations within SUNY. So Alan, I don't know if you wanted to say anything further about that, but it's definitely, June, and important and an area of focus for us.
Yeah. Thank you, Betty.
Yeah.
If I could say something real quick, absolutely. When you when Betty mentioned that the MS in management went online, that's our first online degree. And so when people say that Potsdam is not, doesn't have any online programs, you can tell them differently, because now we have two, and there are more to come in terms of hybrid offerings, certificates and such. And so the faculty is very energized and motivated to see these opportunities that are out there. And we're trying to make everything portable, especially in education, where if somebody says, okay, we need you to teach downstate because we have this pocket of people that we need to educate, Potsdam can go there, and we can do that now because of the processes that we've put in place to be able to get online pretty quickly. So.
Okay, thank you both. Any other questions, comments? If not, we'll move now to Melissa Prue for the Administrative Division's report.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Melissa Prue. I'm the Director of Human Resources. I'll be reporting for HR as well as Environmental Health and Safety. I want to start with Environmental Health and Safety, and I think the most important thing to point out in that update is that we have hired a permanent Director of Environmental Health and Safety, Patrick O'Brien. He comes to us with many years of experience and certifications and has been doing an amazing job. You can see from his update, he's really been focusing on compliance and training and of course, responding to COVID-19. I also wanted to point out in the HR update under COVID, there has been an update since I submitted this. As President Esterberg mentioned, we tested our first round of employees this week. And when I submitted this, it was mandated for UUP represented employees. And CSCA and PEF also now have MOUs in place with the state so that testing is mandated for them as well. So they were included in our first round of testing. And as she stated, we will continue to do that through the semester as those MOUs go through December 31st. I also wanted to just point your attention to a few of the safety practices and policies that we have put into place in response to COVID-19. All of our employees were required to complete a return to work training before coming to campus, and that was done online. We also are having all of our employees that are physically coming to campus complete a daily health screening, and that you're answering questions on symptoms and that kind of thing that I'm sure some of you are also familiar with. So that's been rolled out. And then also we have implemented a guide for returning to work as well as specific policy, which includes a face covering policy so that our employees are as well, of course, wearing a face covering while on campus. And then just hot off the press today, I found out this morning that the statewide telecommuting plan that expires today has been extended through January 1st of 2021. And I can take any questions.
Questions for Melissa? I know Melissa's had more than her hands full during this pandemic. There are lots of questions about who can do what to who and when and where and how.
Yes.
So thanks to you and all of your staff as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We appreciate you and everybody there. Thank you. Now, next up is Sal Kania, who is our Vice President for Advancement. And Sal's wife, Lisa, recently retired from St. Lawrence University.
Yes, she has announced that. So several months until that occasion.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Good to be with you. Fundraising and alumni relations changed abruptly and forever in March of 2020 as we were forced to shift into the virtual world. On a moment's notice, the entire advancement division moved out of Raymond Hall into home offices and connected to our constituencies online. And I'm proud to say that we did it without missing a beat. We expanded virtual fundraising and with the help of our generous donors, exceeded our fiscal 19-20 goal with over $3.1 million. The alumni office moved online as well, keeping in constant touch with our alumni. And in July, at a time when many other colleges canceled reunion programs, we produced our first totally virtual alumni week with thousands of alumni participating. All of this was possible because of the dedication and determination of the advancement staff and their ability to work together seamlessly. Fiscal 2021 presents many obstacles, chief among them that we cannot meet face-to-face or hold in-person events. But in response, we will expand our efforts rather than reduce them. We will offer more and more creative virtual alumni and stewardship events. Fundraisers will travel if it is safe, and we will connect with donors and prospects by expanding into social media. We will continue upgrading our technology and research capabilities. We have launched the Raymond Legacy Society and will increase contacts and mailings through that. In July, we welcomed the Community Performance Series staff into the advancement team. This will help expand our fundraising and stewardship efforts and will generate more arts opportunities for the campus and the community. And we will continue our preparations on track for the next comprehensive fundraising campaign. Our alumni and friends have always been loyal to SUNY Potsdam. Now is the time that we need to ask everyone to be generous and support our students. Finally, the SUNY Council for University Advancement makes awards each year for outstanding publications and marketing campaigns. In addition to 3 awards to our colleagues in the communications office and a congratulations to those colleagues for those awards, Advancement also received a Judge's Citation Award for our Fall 2019 Donor Impact Report. And congratulations to all of those involved with all of those awards. That's about it. Can I help with any questions?
Questions for Sal? And again, thanks to you and your staff and the expanded people who are helping in the situation. And it's just fantastic that we exceeded our fundraising goal for this year.
Yes.
Another amazing accomplishment and tribute to the Potsdam family. Thank you, Sal. And now we're moving on to Student Affairs and Eric Derscherer, who in his many hats in his closet, including Interim Dean of Students, who's going to report on Student Affairs. Eric?
Great, thanks, June. I appreciate the opportunity. Certainly have our opening fall report in the folder for your review. I'd make a couple of comments about the report and things in general. Many people have sung accolades of staff across campus and in their areas that have played a significant role in the not only opening of SUNY Potsdam for the fall semester, but also the fact that we are still able to be open today. Julie Dold, who happens to be on the call in her middle stage role, but is in her role as Director of Residence Life, has done a tremendous job since February, really working on our sending student home plan, on our reopening plan. She has, without any exaggeration, put in thousands of extra hours of work, including several months where she worked Saturdays and Sundays and into the evening, and is a huge part of why the college is able to be open and continue to be open. And not on this call, but I also need to recognize Tracy Harcourt, who is our outstanding Director of Student Health Services, and by her own expertise expanded her role really to be one of our premier health experts on campus, giving myself and President Esterberg and Melissa with employees guidance on what is best in health practices for our campus, well outside her role just in dealing with students. And again, she and her team have put in countless hours to help us not only get open, work with local and state Department of Health. And just in terms of statistics, I think this number is pretty significant, that as of our last round of testing, which finished Tuesday, which completes 2 full rounds of testing, every student, and half of our third round of testing students, we have 4,864 negative test results just for our students. And as President Esterberg mentioned before, it's a real testament to our students who are really policing and enforcing this, sorry, I have a frog in my throat, terrifically amongst themselves. Our athletes, our Greek organizations, our RAs, our peer counselors, our student government leaders, our club and organization leaders are doing a tremendous job in working amongst themselves, putting pressure amongst themselves to wear masks, refrain from hosting gatherings on and off campus. And it's really just been tremendous. And I want to also recognize and thank our students for allowing us to get where we are. The other piece that I think I'd like to highlight, and I think is important to mention, is a change in student life at the SUNY level. Our contact throughout SUNY for student affairs and student life is Dr. John Graham, who's been a great advocate for us. Chancellor Milatris just did a reorganization so that Dr. Graham now reports directly to the Chancellor and is now on the Chancellor's cabinet. And it has been quite some time since the Vice Chancellor for Student Life has reported directly to the Chancellor. There was a change a number of years ago that resulted in the student life person reporting through the provost. And I think, again, this is real testament to the Chancellor's focus on students and how much he values and appreciates students, that he now has a student advocate on his cabinet that reports directly to him. And so we've worked with John for a number of years in the SUNY Student Affairs Group, and that's a tremendous change that gives students an even stronger voice with the Chancellor. In terms of the report, again, I think you have that in front of you. I certainly don't need to go through and restate what's already there. And so I guess I would stop there and invite any questions about student affairs.
Questions? Doing good work.
I have a great team. I'm really blessed to have 7 great directors of the departments in my area and staff that they supervise, who are just tremendously hard workers, creative thinkers, and we are really fortunate as an institution to have the team that we have in student affairs right now.
We'll give our thanks to everybody.
I will. Thank you.
And last but certainly not least is our new interim Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Dr. Claudia Ford. Good morning, Dr. Ford.
Good morning. Good morning to everybody. Thank you, Madam Chair, President Esterberg, and all of my esteemed colleagues here on the council. Thank you for a very warm welcome. And this will be a short report, partly because I am new to this position and was very, very happy to assist the community by stepping into this role. But I'm also fairly new to Potsdam. This is my 2nd year. So last year was my 1st year as a faculty member in the Department of Environmental Studies. I would say that everything that Dr. Tiapo had put in place and is in the report that you have is still certainly true. We do have a new director of the Center for Diversity in Clifton Harcum, who's been working with us now almost not quite a year, and is stepping into that position with a very strong focus on retention of students through increasing the amount of peer mentoring. And I'm very pleased to see his plans and hope to be able to report to the council some successes there. We also have a brand new advisory council. We had our first meeting this week. The advisory council consists of faculty, staff, and students who are committed to and concerned about the Division of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And so it was really a meeting that made me feel very, very optimistic, because there's just such a commitment in our community to these issues and to making sure that this division is strong, especially in this transition year. And then the other thing I would say is that, like most student-facing divisions, departments in our college and in all colleges, we are challenged by the virtual space and engagement of students. And I'm really pleased that our colleagues here at Potsdam have come up with some great models to follow about how to get students engaged and to keep them engaged. One of the things that has happened is that the Black Student Alliance, who are responsible for Black Solidarity Day, the day before the elections, they have, I will say, maybe happily is not the right word, but they have, with great foresight, moved all of their activities online. And so Black Solidarity Day will be virtual, it will be remote. And I think that really showed a lot of maturity on their part and a recognition of a lot of the realities of what we're dealing with. They really want to acknowledge Black Solidarity Day, and they will, and they also are part of this community and wanting to stay safe. So those are the things that I wanted to highlight. I am really looking forward to working with everybody, and I'm happy to take any questions at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions for Claudia? If not, thank you. And we look forward to working with you as well. And thank you for stepping up to help the family get through this. Thank you. So that ends our formal reports for this meeting. And now we are going to have a report from the co-chairs of the Middle States Reaccreditation Self-Study. And I know that Julie and Gordon have joined us. So I will turn the floor over to you, and however you want to handle it, who's going to talk first?
Hi, I guess I'll jump in and ask. So let me first, what's the timeline on this? Are we ending at noon, or how much time do we have? Because that's going to affect what we're going to present.
Well, it's not live television, so we don't have a hard break that we have to go to at noon.
Okay.
You try to be respectful of people's time.
Okay.
So I would say that, unless I hear otherwise from council members, 10, 15 minutes should be good. Does that work for your presentation?
It works for us. Does that work for other people, or should we make this 5 minutes? Do people have things to do at noon is my question.
Jeff, do you have to be on TV at noon? Jeff, are you gone?
Yes, he had to step off for live news at noon.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
So, yes.
All right, well, we'll get started, and we've actually prepared some slides. So I'm gonna try and share my screen. And is that what I want? Actually, hold on, I need to do this. So we will go through this. So I'm Gordon Plegg. I don't know if you guys are seeing my screen at this.
Yes, we are.
All right, excellent, thank you. So I'm Gordon Plegg. Julie Dold, is the Director of Residence Life. I'm a professor in the biology department. So we're co-chairing this Middle States Reaccreditation. So we thought we'd start off with just a little bit of background about what accreditation is and why it's called Middle States. And I know some who are on this call have heard this before, but for the council members, this may be new information. So the Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Education, is the body that's responsible for accrediting institutes of higher education in our country. But they don't do it directly. So it was 1965 or 1966, I think Congress passed a law removing direct responsibility from the DOE. And so they set up some nonprofit accreditation councils or institutes. And here's a map of the United States. And so the US is sort of parsed and divided up geographically into different nonprofit accreditation entities. So you can see the schools in the Northwest are called the Northwest Commission on Colleges and Universities, and there's one in the West, California and Hawaii, and et cetera. So I think there are 7 or 8 of these. And we are accredited by the Middle States Commission on Higher Education. So we call it Middle States. The reason why it's called Middle States is because it's the mid-Atlantic states. So it's responsible for New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. You can see Delaware, but also the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Middle States overseas. So that's why it's called Middle States. And so what is accreditation? So accreditation is a voluntary process. Universities choose to be accredited, essentially. But what it does is there are a number of reasons that a university would choose to be accredited. And we'll talk about a few of those. So the first is that accreditation assures students and parents that there are going to be some minimal expectations when it comes to general education, for example, and in the majors that they choose to study, that there's some minimal amount of expertise. And so the students will get that expertise from the college. There's an expectation and an understanding that there will be student learning outcomes and that those student learning outcomes are assessed, that there are some resources that will be available, funding and services available to students that may need to meet the needs of students. So this is part of accreditation. Also importantly, an accredited university, what that means from a student's perspective is that the credits that they earn at that university and that the degree that they earn at that university is recognized by employers or by graduate schools, for example, medical schools, and a non-accredited university would not be recognized by a medical school. A student would not be admitted to medical school or law school or graduate school if they attended a non-accredited university. And then also, last but not least, federal financial aid is available to students at an accredited university. So I think the latest number that I saw is that 74% of our students receive federal financial aid. That would not be available to them if we weren't accredited. So this is clearly an important thing. If we are not reaccredited, we are currently accredited, we're going for reaccreditation. If we don't get reaccredited, it's turn out the lights and lock the doors. We're not going to be in business much longer. So this really is, even though it's voluntary, it's really not, from a practical perspective, a voluntary thing that we do. So middle states, the details of middle states, they have designed 7 different standards that we must show that we meet these standards. And each one of these standards, the standards are listed here. And under each one of these are a suite of different criteria that giving additional details of different things that we have to show that we meet to receive reaccreditation. So from the words, I stole this from middle states, but I think it's a nice way, the way that they view each of these standards. I think these standards make good sense. So what they say is that an accredited institution of higher education has an appropriate mission. So that's standard 1. It lives it with integrity. So standard number 2, it delivers an effective student learning experience. Standard 3, it supports the overall student experience both inside and outside the classroom. So that's standard 4. It assesses its own educational effectiveness. Number 5, it uses planning and resources to ensure institutional improvement. Number 6, and it is characterized by effective governance, leadership, and administration. So that's kind of the philosophy with why each of these standards is important and why they assess us on these different standards. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Julie now, and she's going to tell you a little bit about the process and give you all a bit of the background of what we're doing and where we stand in this process. So Julie.
Thanks, Gordon. And thanks to everyone for having us with you this morning. So the accreditation process for college campuses for middle states happens every 10 years. So the last time that we were reaccredited was in 2012. This is an evidence-based self-study that we must demonstrate how we meet the 7 standards that Gordon just discussed. And we do this through the lens of campus priorities. And for our purposes, we've selected 4, which I'll talk about in just a moment. We are currently in our 2nd year of our 3-year process. So Gordon and I started working last year of getting our heads wrapped around this whole process and what we had agreed to do. We've attended an institute that Middle States hosted. We've developed a steering committee, which has 10 other faculty and staff members joining us to work through this process. And we're currently in the phase of finalizing what's called our self-study design. And having working groups start really delving into the evidence-based self-study of exploring those standards and those campus priorities. At the end of our 3-year process, our intended outcomes are really simple. We want to have reaffirmation of our accreditation. We want to keep the doors open. We want to keep SUNY Potsdam going for years to come. We want to make sure that we are doing this as an inclusive campus process. Every constituent's voice matters in this, and we need to be making sure that we're taking those into account. And then our focus through the self-study is on continuous improvement and innovation. That's how colleges and great education like Potsdam's had for over 200 years really persist, is that we're constantly looking for those opportunities to improve and to innovate and to stay relevant with the changing times. Going into the priorities a little bit, the way that these were identified through the campus, again, was a fairly long process. Gordon and I started meeting with campus leadership last fall to include leadership forum, the Council of Chairs and Program Directors, President's Council, other leaders, the SGA president, to start coming up with ideas of what our priorities could be. In February of this year, we did a campus survey so that all faculty and staff would have an opportunity to weigh in on them. And then the steering committee took all of those data points and really just drilled them down to the 4 priorities. Our first one is strategic enrollment management. This was identified in the campus survey as our highest priority. And as the name suggests, it's really focusing on recruitment and retention, things like orientation, advising, other experiences. Essentially, how do we continue to interest students in coming to Potsdam, and how do we make sure that they stay here and complete their degree once they get here? Our second priority is creativity, and this is tied really heavily into our mission. Our former designation, SUNY, doesn't quite have this anymore, but I think that we all feel still as being an arts campus. But we want to expand creativity beyond what you would think of as the traditional arts. There's a lot of great creativity happening with faculty in student research and in instruction. And so we want to be looking at how we are harnessing the creative efforts that are happening on campus. Our third priority is inclusive excellence. President Esterberg has really had this at the heart of the work that we've done since becoming president. So how do we make sure that we are an inclusive excellent institution, looking at diversity very broadly, individuals who identify as minorities, non-traditional students, first generation, LGBTQIA+, so on and so forth. This ties in really nicely to the great work that's being done to expand the diversity offerings in the classrooms, with courses being identified with a diversity tag and the WAYS 103 that's part of the general education program. And then our final priority is strategic decision making. This really ties in heavily to assessment and how obviously we're making decisions on campus. When Gordon and I attended the Middle States Institute with Betty last fall, it was very clear to us that assessment is one of the biggest elements that Middle States is looking for. How are we using assessment to make sure that we're doing data-driven decisions and really helping to chart the course forward? So we thought that it was a really great way to really just look at that, take a pause and make sure again that we're looking for those opportunities to celebrate and for improvement. As we move to next steps in this process, as I mentioned earlier, we are currently finalizing our self-study design. This is the template that will guide our work for the next year and a half. We need to submit this to Middle States, most likely today, and our Middle States liaison, Paul Starkey, will be doing a virtual visit with us to do what's called the self-study preparation visit on October 23rd. This visit is an opportunity for him to learn more about the current status of SUNY Potsdam, all the great things that we're doing, maybe challenges that we want to be using this opportunity to learn more and to do other things, to acquaint those who have crucial roles in the self-study process with Mill State's expectations, and for him to offer feedback on our self-study design. One of the sessions that he will be doing is with College Council members. It doesn't need to be the entire College Council. He said probably about 2 or 3 members would be sufficient. So we hope that we will be able to have some of you join Paul on October 23rd from 1:30 to 2:15 to do this introductory meeting and prepare for our self-study process. So at this point, we'd be happy to answer any questions that folks have.
Questions? Thank you both. I know that this is a lot of work and it's, nothing that you can cut a ribbon on. So it goes unnoticed and underappreciated. So on behalf of the council, I want to thank you all and encourage any council members. I'm assuming we will get an email with a link or something to join. And we'll make sure that the council is represented on that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what a question that we can ask you guys is, what would be the best way to proceed? Because we do need to see if there are a handful of people that would be able to join us. Would an email sent out to all council members with sort of the information be the best way? And then those that might be interested could respond to that? Would that be the best way, do you think?
I think so.
Okay.
So everybody can watch your email and, the date, the time, and a little bit of an explanation, because we had 2 or 3 members that had to leave because of prior obligations. So
Okay.
that would be helpful.
Perfect.
And, a time frame to respond by.
Yeah.
Okay, that's always helpful, at least for me.
Yes.
That's when you know when to push the panic button and let, you can email me and let me know that you haven't heard from certain people, and I'll be happy to shake the tree.
Very
So thank you both.
Very
Thank
good.
you. Thank you for that. If we have no questions for Julie and Gordon, next is any old business to be brought up. I don't believe we had anything tabled that needed to be revisited. If not, any new business. I think we covered a lot of new business today. The next meeting is to be determined. Both the date and also I'm assuming it's probably going to be virtual again. My crystal ball is a little cloudy today, but that's okay. We've now reached the end of the meeting. I want to thank you all for joining us today. Rich had to leave, but said that he was sending his usual motion to adjourn the meeting if we needed it. Is there anybody who's here in person that would like to make that motion?
I move we adjourn.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, and all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Anybody who's opposed has to stay. Everyone else is dismissed. Thank you all very much. Stay safe, be well.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you, June. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.